The music was soft, the air smelled of roses and champagne, and the bride's laughter carried through the golden-lit ballroom. But within minutes, that laughter would turn into something cruel, something she would regret for the rest of her life. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. Her name was Amelia. Elegant, young, and raised in a family where status meant everything. She'd spent months planning this perfect wedding, the guest list, the diamond tiara, even the precise timing of when she'd toss the bouquet. Nothing was supposed to go wrong. Not tonight, but as the guests dined and cameras flashed, a small accident changed everything. An elderly waitress, her hands trembling slightly with age, approached Amelia's table with a tray of champagne. Her name was Grace. Silver hair neatly tied, eyes soft yet tired, wearing a faded uniform that had seen better days. She moved with quiet dignity, careful not to disturb the laughter and clinking glasses around her. But as she leaned forward, one glass slipped. Just one. A golden splash of champagne spotted the lace of Amelia's white dress. For a moment, silence. Then whispers. Amelia's face twisted in disbelief. Then fury. "Are you blind?" she snapped, pushing back her chair so hard it screeched. Guests turned. The groom froze mid-conversation. Grace stammered, "I'm so sorry, ma'am, But the apology never finished. The bride's hand struck her cheek. Hard. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The old woman stumbled, hand to her face, tears welling in her eyes. The hall fell into stunned quiet until someone stood up. It was the groom. "Amelia," he said slowly, his voice trembling not with fear, but disbelief. "What did you just do?" She blinked, confused. "She spilled on me, Daniel. Look at this dress." But Daniel didn't look at her dress. He was staring at the waitress. His throat tightened and his hands shook as he whispered, that woman is my mother." The world seemed to tilt. A murmur spread like fire across the tables. Amelia's lips parted, but no sound came. The old woman, Grace, wiped her tears gently. She didn't look angry, just heartbroken. "It's all right, Daniel," she said softly. "She didn't know." Daniel stepped forward, voice rising. "No, Mom, she should have known. No one deserves to be treated like that." He turned to the stunned guests, then back to Amelia. "You wanted the perfect wedding, Amelia. But love isn't about perfection. It's about respect. My mother worked her whole life so I could stand here today. She's been a waitress since I was a child. And you—" His voice broke. "You slapped the woman who raised me." Amelia's knees weakened. Her father-in-law stood silently, shame shadowing his face. The cameras that once clicked for glamour now froze on pain. Grace turned toward Daniel, tears tracing down her weathered cheeks. "Please, son," she whispered. "Don't let anger ruin your day. Let's just go." But Daniel shook his head. "No, Mom, not this time." He looked back at Amelia, his eyes filled with something she'd never seen before. Clarity. "You see, Amelia, I thought I knew what love was. I thought it meant fancy halls and pretty dresses. But watching you raise your hand to my mother," he exhaled slowly. "That's not love." He stepped away from the altar. Away from her. The crowd parted as Daniel walked toward Grace, wrapping his arms around her frail shoulders. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, softly, someone began to clap. It spread, hesitant at first, then strong. Not for spectacle, but for courage. Amelia fell to her knees, her veil slipping to the floor, eyes wide with realization. She had lost not just her temper, but the man who loved her most. Later that night, when the hall emptied and the lights dimmed, Amelia sat alone beside the untouched wedding cake. The echo of her own actions haunted her. The slap that once felt like power now felt like poison. And somewhere in the distance, Daniel and Grace sat at a small cafe, mother and son, sharing tea under the quiet glow of a street lamp. She smiled faintly and whispered, "You did right, son. Always choose kindness even when it hurts." He nodded. "I learned that from you, Mom. Because kindness doesn't vanish. It waits. and it finds its way back, and for Amelia, that night would forever remind her that respect is worth more than any diamond, and love means nothing without compassion. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Cinematic Whispers, where every story reminds us that humanity, no matter how broken, can still find its voice.